Hi everyone, welcome to Faith and Flower. I'm Robin and this is my husband Patrick. We are doing a Q&A today, so hopefully this is going to be a fun time for you guys. I've got lots of questions from you to answer. I want to answer the first one. Where's that? From Michelle Beatty. She said, Robin, when you get your button, can you show us? So she's referring to the YouTube play button, and we did just receive it for getting 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So I did think it would be a lot of fun to open in front of you guys. So let's do that now before we start with the questions. All right. So it comes with a letter, a little card. And here it is. It says, presented to Faith and Flower for passing 100,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much. This is a huge honor. And of course, we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all of your support and all of the really encouraging comments that you have given me throughout the last 4.5 years. So I'm looking forward to a lot more time here with you on YouTube. And let's get started with the questions. There were some overlapping questions, so I tried to group them together into categories a little bit and not repeat, but bear with us because I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledged everybody that sent in a question. So Patrick's going to read the questions, I'm going to answer, and he might jump in once in a while.
So you got a lot of homemaking questions. T-Cat asks, how do you start if your house is a complete disaster? Okay,
so I have had this question really often in the past, and I have a few videos that address it. Basically, you just have to start somewhere. And so I would pick the most high traffic areas of your home. So the kitchen and the bathrooms probably, and just establish a few things that you really want to make sure get done on a daily basis and then a weekly basis, and just jump in with those few things. And you can add on as you go. And once you start establishing a routine, things will get a lot easier. And if you want to, you can look at some of my older videos. I will have them linked down in the description box, and it'll give you maybe a little bit better of an outline for how to get started, but it's very individual. So you need to just, like I said, make your priority list and just start with one thing at a time.
Taryn Pitts asks, what recipes do you love to make when life is super busy?
So I have a video on some dinners that I like to make when I don't feel like cooking. I'll put that down in the description box. I did that with Jennifer L. Scott. Her video is linked in there too. And between the two of us, there are a lot of suggestions. So check out those videos.
Do you have any advice for how to keep the house clean during the season of life where your kids are little and still teething and getting sick frequently?
Okay, yeah. That is really, really hard. And I would say the most important thing is just to love on your kids at that age and just let go of a lot of the other stuff. Again, you know, kind of pick those priorities and try to get those things done. But you're not going to remember that you had a messy house. You're going to remember what life was like when your kids were really little, and you don't want to miss out on any of that. So don't get caught up in all the housework and everything. And I probably didn't do that as well as I could have. And looking back, I realized that I could have saved myself a lot of stress and just relaxed a little bit more when it comes to the housework.
And Michelle McGuire says, do you think it's better to take dried goods out of their packaging and put them in an airtight container, or leave them in the original packaging?
Right. I really like to take my things out, decant them into containers. And I do that for a few different reasons. I feel like since the kind of containers I have keep things very fresh, that those things last longer, but also it's more aesthetically pleasing for my pantry, and it makes it very easy for me when I'm making up a shopping list to go in my pantry and quickly see, because I have clear containers, what I'm running low on and what I already have, so that making a shopping list is much more simple.
And she also says that she doesn't have a pantry and so uses kitchen cupboards. Is glass better than expensive plastic?
Yeah, and I think that's just a personal preference. I have both. So I have some Tupperware containers which are quite high quality plastic, And I also have some high quality glass jars. Kind of prefer the glass ones. I just feel like there's less chance of any kind of leaching from the plastic or anything like that. But now they have a lot of very high quality plastics that are BPA free. So I think it just depends on what you prefer and your budget. And maybe if you have small kids, you might feel safer using plastic than glass. So I would just go with what works for you.
Question from Casey and Chris's Life Adventures. How do you keep your family motivated to continue keeping up things in places you've already organized?
Okay, yeah. Well, it is tough. And I think when your kids are small, having an organizing system is a real blessing. If you can make it where they can know where their toys go and their belongings, that will really help. But of course, it's a process of going behind them and helping them when they're not motivated to keep up with it, and also spouses sometimes. Yeah. But I think, it's hard when you come up with an organization system that makes sense to you. It might not make sense to everybody else in your family. So it might just be a matter of working through the kinks over time and seeing what things work and what things don't work and just adjusting as you go along. And one thing that I have learned is just not to sweat the small stuff when it comes to that. If you're the one that is the most organized and it matters to you the most, then it might be up to you to make sure that the systems function and not to put too many expectations on everyone else in your family.
When I leave socks or stuff on the floor, and you used to get frustrated with me about telling me to pick them up, but then at some point you just...
Yeah, at some point I thought, why should I... He doesn't think about that. He's not leaving the socks on the floor to annoy me. He just forgets. So I'm the one that cares about the socks on the floor, so I pick them up. And I know similarly, you probably do a lot of things too, right? Like filling up the car with gas, and like he pays attention to those things more than I do, as long as I don't run out. And we just over time kind of divide up some of the responsibilities, and it's no big deal. You just figure out what works for you and your family.
Torty Cat says, any tips on how you managed your move would be appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, gosh, it is hard. I think we did a lot of decluttering before we left to make it as easy as possible, and having in mind the type of storage and the space that we're going to be moving into, and knowing, what was important to try to keep and what wasn't. And
just the things that we never used for multiple years,
right,
those were the easiest.
Yeah, and it gets harder as you kind of get down, and then even after we moved here, we realized we needed to pare down even more in a lot of ways.
Lots of trips to Goodwill.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually probably one of our best tips, I think, is like as you accumulate things that you want to donate, just get them out. Once you've made a decision, just put it in that donation pile and then take it straight to Goodwill. And I mean, I don't think there's anything that we missed that we've donated. I think we've never had a regret about something that we've donated. That would probably be my best advice. Just kind of make quick decisions as much as possible. And then also, if you get decision fatigue, just take a break. Do something else and don't get stuck.
Melissa Kelly asks, since you have some property now, do you plan on a bigger garden than before?
Well, I would love to have a bigger garden. We actually, in North Carolina, we had 4.5 acres. And we had a really nice vegetable garden, and I loved it. Plus, we had tons of wild blackberries on our property. I used to be able to gather up, and I just made batches and batches of jam. It worked really well for that season of life. But right now, our focus is on being free to travel. We've got family in Switzerland, family on the East Coast. We'd like to use our Airstream as well to travel around, see some national parks and different things. So a garden doesn't work really well when you're traveling, but it is nice to know that if we tire of that, or there's a season where we want to make a garden, that we've got plenty of space for it. And because we've done that before, I think we could easily establish that again. So I think I'll do a little bit. I have a couple of areas that are kind of already ready to go, and maybe plant next summer some of the things that we really like tomatoes or something like that.
This year you did flowers and things like that in some of the places.
Right. Yeah, we were just so busy renovating this year that we didn't need the time out for a garden, but it is nice to know that we can if we want to. So maybe down the road.
All right. Crystal Williams Johnson asks, have you always kept an organized house? If so, how did you manage to organize it and maintain it when your kids were small?
Yeah.
That's her current challenge. And
Okay.
she's also asking if I'm organized, and if not, did you do anything to help me to maintain the house too?
Yeah. Well, so I would say when we were first married, you guys should watch the video that I put up about, that I'm a former slob because I was, and I think we were both kind of on the pack rat side. We didn't like to part with anything. We would just, store everything and never make a decision about getting rid of anything. And so that was hard. And I think moving a few times helped us realize that that wasn't the best strategy. Over time, I realized that having an organized home meant having a more peaceful home. That was something that served our family really well. So it was a very slow process, and there wasn't any one thing I think that I did. Usually I think if you're the one that wants to start organizing your home, start with your own things. So start in your own closet, in your own chest of drawers in your bedroom. If you're the one that does all of the cooking, work in the kitchen next. And lots of times I think that the rest of the family saw that and they were a little bit motivated to do that on their own. And of course, with the kids, I did my best to help them keep organized and straight too. And actually, I think just seeing what we were doing really helped Patrick. I know like you started...
For things in the garage, I would organize it, and then kind of over time as I'd use it, I wouldn't always put it away. And Robin did help me with that, just kind of like after I use it, you make sure you put it where you originally got it from, and those things help maintain the organization.
Yeah,
because I always had a problem with that.
Right, and I think that is true for most people. It's a challenge to set up organization, but I think the real challenge is maintaining it. So yeah, just making sure that when you organize things, you have a place for everything, and so that those things can go back in their place, and that will really help. Okay.
Jennifer Johnson needs help on organizing papers such as incoming mail and bills. She says over the last 10 years she's kept everything, but now wants to declutter and doesn't know how to set up a system without piling up more stacks of papers.
Okay.
So any ideas for that?
You do have to have some sort of file system. You just need to know what those categories are so that when those bills come in, you'll have a place for them. If you've kept things for 10 years, I would say you probably don't really need a lot of that. So sort through and see. Almost all of your bills are probably accessible online, so you don't really have to keep those things. But if there are some important papers, then I would pull those things out, file them, and then as soon as you get new papers, we kind of collect them for about a week or so, like receipts or bills that need to be paid. And then I do that once a week, and then those papers all get filed. We don't hold on to those receipts or bills for more than about a year.
Yeah.
At some point during the year, I'll go through and I'll just pull out all the previous year's items and shred those things or recycle those. If you really need to know something from the past, you can access that online. You don't have to keep up with all that paper.
Diane Moore wants to know how you balance important life, people things with home responsibility.
Oh, I like her quote there. Her mother said, "Don't confuse the urgent for the important." And then she said, "But you can't let chores wait forever or even your own downtime." And that's true. I mean, you have to strike some sort of balance, but I would say always, always people first. So when there's something going on in your family or somebody, a friend or any person needs your attention, that will have to be your first priority. The cleaning and home responsibilities, of course, there's some more urgent than others, like keeping up with the bills and making sure that your family members have what they need in the way of being fed and, clean clothes and stuff. So there are some things you will have to keep doing. But I would say just prioritize. Go back to what I said before. You have to sometimes pick and choose, and you can't have everything. And whatever happens with the people in your life is the first thing that should matter.
And sometimes when that's happened, you can delegate more things to Peyton and I.
True. Yeah.
Cleaning.
Yeah, and I have to say that's been really great in our family when we've had things going on that other family members kick in a little bit more and we help each other out. Definitely delegating when you need it is important.
Jasmine Sarah wants to know if you have any advice for the early years of homemaking. She's expecting her second this fall, and her firstborn will be 2.
I think I pretty much answered this before, Jasmine. Just make those kids your priority. Hopefully your husband's willing to kick in some too to take up the slack when you really need to be giving them your attention. But even for him, enjoying your kids when they're young, it goes by so incredibly fast. You're not going to remember what your house was like as far as how clean things were. So don't worry about it. Just make sure that the basic necessities are taken care of, and the rest, you'll have plenty of time to have a neat and ordered house later on.
Yeah. Laura Piccio-Leckie asked 2 questions. She'd like to know if you have any favorite Bible verses, and how do you keep the house tidy and organized when you live with not so tidy people?
Okay. Well, Laura, I've gotten several questions about Bible verses, so I'm going to push that off to a little bit later in the video and answer that then. But as far as keeping the house tidy and organized when you live with not such tidy people, well, I'm the only girl in our household. I'm married to a man. We have 2 boys, and I'm sure girls can be messy too, because I was a messy girl.
A dirty dog.
Yeah, we've always had a dog, and wow, they make bigger messes than anybody. Teach your spouse and your kids kind of how you want things done. Once they understand the system or how to clean something, for example, with the kids, keeping up their rooms and things like that, I can remember teaching them all of the steps, that you need to start with dusting and do it from the top down, and then vacuum last, and just sort of all the things that we do that we sort of feel like are intuitive isn't really intuitive for everyone. So you have to break it down and teach them what you expect. And then when they're little, you have to inspect what they do afterwards and know if there's room for improvement, showing them in a kind way that they need to, pay a little bit more attention here or there. But you also don't want to make them so frustrated that they don't feel like helping out. So you just kind of have to find that balance, but you do need to have expectations for the people in your family to maintain things to a certain degree. Make it work.
Yeah. And Lori Blankenship wants to know if she should iron sheets or pillowcases. She's done both, but ironing sheets is overwhelming.
Yeah, so I have a cheat for that. I iron the pillowcases, and then I just iron like the first sort of foot or so of the top of the sheet, the part that you fold over, and the rest I don't worry about. I don't do the bottom sheet at all. And that just takes a few minutes, and it looks really nice when the bed's made. But let's face it, when you iron sheets and pillowcases, it only looks great for the first night anyway. So if it's for a guest room and you want it to look presentable, by all means do that, but don't knock yourself out ironing the entire sheet set.
Ich bin ein Jellycrumpfen wants to know, what's one aspect of your homemaking life you wish you could change going back, or advice for someone in their early 20s?
Yeah, so I know I would go back and not sweat the small stuff so much, not worry about how everything was just perfect. And also I think I would have established routines a little bit better. I think I just sort of waited until something overwhelmed me and then worried about it. But by having some routines in place, I think you can make it a little bit, make it a little bit easier to handle.
Heather Annie 51 would like to know, how do you keep your routines going day after day? Do you ever have those days where you just don't bother? I've had a hard time sticking to my routines.
Yeah, I definitely have those days. Absolutely. Especially, when someone in the family needs extra attention, or there's something going on, or you don't feel well, or, something happens, and you just don't beat yourself up. You just do what needs to be done that day, and you push off the other stuff for another time. Maybe when I was younger, I worried about it a little bit more, and now I've realized that that just shouldn't matter.
And Linda Budzik would like to know, how often do you switch out and wash your microfiber cloths in the kitchen?
Okay. I always get a lot of questions about microfiber because I use those to clean all the time, and I still love using them, and that's probably one of my favorite cleaning tools. So I usually wash them like minimum once a week, and sooner if needed, and I just gather them up in the laundry room, and once I have a good load of them, I'll wash them once a week. And I think she also asked about the scrubby thing.
Yeah, she wants to know, like, I actually have this question too, is the scrubby thing that we use to wash the dishes washable? Because it's always kind of clean, and I don't know how it gets clean.
Yeah, and so I have a few of those, and it's the same thing. I'd say generally use it for about a week. If I use one for a really dirty job, like we have a really big spill or something, then I will put that one in right away. But otherwise, they should last about a week if you rinse them out really good and let them hang to dry.
The next subject matter is cooking questions.
Okay.
We'll start off with Tiffany J. Purnell's question. She wonders if we have any favorite gluten-free tortillas.
There are a couple of brands. I I will put something on the screen for you to let you know the brand name because I can't think of it offhand. But I just found them at Costco, and I've found them also at places like Whole Foods and at our local grocery store. And they use, I think, cassava flour, and they also have one that's made of almond flour. Those are really good. And that's probably Peyton's favorite. I did recently try out a recipe for some, and I'll try to find that and link it for you as well. But I would say the store-bought brand that I put up on the screen is kind of our go-to for that.
And Teresa R. has a question. She wants to know if our family eats leftovers. She says her husband will not eat leftovers unless I can turn them into something completely different, or I freeze them into something that can be frozen. And she needs new ideas to reinvent her leftovers.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. You should maybe bring your husband in. I say, shame on him.
Yeah, we eat leftovers. We actually really enjoy leftovers because for me it means a lot less work in the kitchen. Something's already done and we just have to reheat it and eat it. So that's no problem for us. But there are some ideas you can use for kind of turning your leftovers into something different. Like for instance, if you had roast chicken or something like that, you can take that leftover chicken and then put that into some sort of a casserole or like a pasta dish. Just depends on how you eat and what types of things you're making. I mean, if you're making a casserole for dinner, it's kind of hard to disguise that as something else later. There are also 2 cookbooks by Cassie Joy Garcia that I have used on my channel and shown you guys that give you some strategies for cooking ahead and keeping your leftovers but presenting them in a new way. So I will put those up on the screen for you to check out as well.
And we've also noticed like curries and things like of that matter actually even gets better the next day.
That is so true. Yeah, curries and certain stews and soups are actually even better the second or third time around when they've had a chance for all the flavors to kind of marry. So maybe you can just keep working on your husband and convince him that leftovers are really great.
Okay. And now there's some home renovation and new home kind of questions. Nikki was wondering, how do we like our flooring?
Right, so I think she thinks it's luxury vinyl plank, but it's not. It's actually engineered hardwood. I will put that link down in the description box. I've had loads of people ask me about it, and we are over the moon about the floors. We're so happy, yeah.
It's been good with, I mean, at the last place it would get all these kind of scratched up from Austin if you slid on it, and here you don't see the scratches or anything.
Right.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I mean it's a lighter wood. It doesn't have a shiny finish to it, so it doesn't show really anything.
Even his hair.
Yeah, you can't see the dog hair. You don't see, you know, footprints and dust like we could see on our, you know, we had a much
black one.
Yeah, much darker. Shiny surface, and yeah, it doesn't show scratches either. I think it's very durable. It has, I think, a 50-year warranty, so it's really good. Couldn't say enough good things about it. So if you're in the market for hardwood floors, you might want to check that brand out, and I will have that link down in the description box.
Okay, and Michelle Howard wants to know if we have any neighbors close by and what kind of wildlife we have.
Okay, yeah, so we do have fairly close neighbors. We all have probably in the ballpark of an acre or so here where we are. So we're not very close, but certainly close enough to get to know our neighbors, and they've been wonderful. A lot of dog lovers. So we've met a lot of our neighbors walking Austin, and then loads and loads of wildlife, which has been really fun and sometimes not so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the skunk was not fun. And yeah, you guys might remember that Austin had an encounter with a skunk in our backyard. So that's not great. But what are all the things we've seen? Like
lots of deer.
Yeah.
Robin had an encounter with a ring-tailed cat.
Yeah, that was a little bit scary. That was in our hangar, the garage where we keep our Airstream.
And then we have armadillo. We've seen quite a few fox. We can hear the coyotes, but we haven't seen them yet.
Right. A roadrunner is here pretty regularly.
Yeah. Lots of birds. We hear birds all the time in the morning that we didn't used to hear at the last place.
Right, and bats at nighttime. Yeah, which Texas is kind of known for. And when the weather was really dry, they would come dip down into the pool just as it was getting dark to get a drink. So we got a good look at a lot of bats.
Deborah Tiemann would like to know, are we enjoying the new, smaller home, and has it been a big adjustment for Peyton?
Yeah, so it was an adjustment for Peyton. He always wanted a 2-story house. So even when
Yeah.
we first moved to Texas, we had contemplated a ranch style home, but he was really, really wanting a 2nd story. So we went with that. And we really enjoyed our previous home where we had that. But here it's just been really nice. We just love it. And he's adjusted really well. He still has his own space and he likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And DJC20 wants to know, how has Austin enjoyed the move, and does he like his new neighborhood?
Yeah, I think Austin adjusted the easiest, right? He loved it.
He's having a blast here because now he can just run and run around the backyard. I mean, when I'm mowing the yard, he just is doing circles around and around all the time.
Yeah.
So he loves it and likes going for the walks. So
yeah, he really does. It's been great for him.
McDonald 9383, she knows the reasons why we wanted to move, but she was wondering if there were any unexpected blessings.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we knew that having a smaller home would be easier to maintain, and it is. And I think it's just, I don't think we realized what a stress reliever it would be to have a smaller space to maintain in so many different ways.
Just leaves us more time
Right.
for things.
Yeah, we got a lot of time back. And that was probably the main motivator for moving, because our commute was just ridiculous. And now we have about a 7-minute commute to take Peyton back and forth. And so we have so much more time to use as we choose throughout the day, and a lot less cost involved as well. So yeah.
Karen Davidson 1965 would like to know if there are any downsides to downsizing, and are you guys planning on keeping the pool?
The downsizing downside. There's not much really. I guess the only thing I can think of is, maybe feeling a little more cramped if you have a lot of guests or something like
when
that.
guests come.
But so far that has not been a problem either. We don't tend to have like a ton of overnight guests at once. We usually just have maybe 2 other people, like when my parents came, and then when our son and daughter-in-law came. We do have 1 guest room, so that it's no problem. And we actually have the Airstream too, so if we had more people, we have that extra space. But that's the only thing, and we haven't really experienced that. We just think it could be a problem.
I sometimes miss the movie room. That was kind of fun.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
It's also nice not having it as another place to clean and take care of, and things that could break.
Right. I miss my bathtub a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now on to some financial related questions. Anne says, you have talked about finances on your channel a couple times, and she gained a lot of insight from them. She and her husband are relatively newlyweds and are looking into buying a house, but the housing prices now are just way higher than their budget. Can you tell us the story of our home ownership? Did we start out renting? How many years? How do you know when you're ready to buy?
The housing market is super tough right now. It's maybe getting a little bit better in certain parts of the country, but especially for newlyweds, I think it would be really tough. And we're kind of going through this a little bit with Kyle and Lauren, our son and daughter-in-law, who are also newlyweds and would like to at some point buy a home. We rented for about 7 or 8 years. We were in one apartment or condo, I guess, yeah,
years.
for about 5 years, and then we actually rented an apartment for another 3 years, I guess, right? 3 years. There's a lot of advantages to renting, especially when you're young. We really enjoyed the ability to travel and not have to maintain a yard when we were away and things like that. Plus, when things break, it's not your responsibility as much when you're renting. And it frees you up in a lot of ways. And especially when you go to buy that first home, you're not going to be burdened with selling what you're already living in. So that can be a real advantage. What else?
Yeah, we've been recommending Kyle just to be kind of picky on his first one, because he has nothing tying him down right now, so he can be a little bit choosy. You're not going to find the perfect house. Yeah, just make sure it has the right location for you guys, and make sure it has most of the features that you kind of would like to. Make sure you don't have to put too much work into it if you aren't expecting to. Sometimes you think it's not going to cost that much to upgrade or make some changes in the house, and even when we were doing this one, we learned that it's always costing a little bit more than you initially budget for.
Right. Enjoy your newlywed life without the additional burden of home ownership, because it is a huge responsibility. So even though it's exciting to dream about and plan together, I would definitely take your time. Just enjoy
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audrey943 would like to know if this is our forever home.
I guess we don't really think in terms of that because we just know that life changes and we don't want to be heartbroken, you know, that we've kind of invested ourselves in that way. So I don't know, we're kind of adventuresome too, and the possibility of change doesn't scare us. We've done it before. For us, we have learned that home is where the heart is. It's not really the place, it's the people that you're with. So I think when you have that attitude, that isn't a question that you contemplate very much, huh?
Yeah, I mean, as far out as we can see right now, I think this is going to be home.
Yeah.
But we're not limiting ourselves to maybe someday when Peyton's that big or doing something else that we might move it one more time.
Yeah, yeah.
Sherry HH would like to know if we plan on staying in Texas when we retire, or are we going to move back to where our family members live?
Right. So I think, you know, our current plan is to stay here in Texas because our son Peyton will hopefully become a resident of Big, which is Brookwood in Georgetown. We would like to be close by, but we do plan to do more traveling during that time.
Yeah.
So we would have like a home base here and then be able to travel to the East Coast and to Switzerland, both for seeing family and then also doing some travel for fun. Yeah.
Wendy C. Smith would like to know how we like our cabinets from IKEA.
Yeah, we like them a lot. We're really happy with them.
Yeah.
So we feel like the quality is really good. We really don't have any issues with them other than the whole supply chain issue really affected us.
It took a long time.
Yeah, so that was hard. And I would say if you're planning to use IKEA cabinetry that you are aware, I mean, maybe it's changed, but when we were waiting for things to come in, we had to wait quite a long time and it held us up in a few areas. So that was really the worst of it. The rest has been really good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a similar vein, JMZ Silver would like to know if we have any advice for someone going through a renovation like this, and how do you like your range, and is it an induction range, and how we like the IKEA cabinets.
Yeah. So yeah, back to the IKEA cabinets. I see that she talked about the corner cabinet I've shown where it has pull-out shelves. I think IKEA is amazing with that. They have
a lot of neat features.
Yeah, a lot of really great features, like unique storage.
Drawers and drawers, like those.
Yeah, a lot of really nice features that the really high-end custom cabinets have. So like things that we had in our other home, we could find in the IKEA cabinets too, plus even things we didn't have there. I feel like the cabinets are really good quality. Of course, it's a lot more work because you have to put everything together. So if
you might have to be a little more gentle with the furniture, right? I mean,
yeah, maybe, yeah. It depends on what you pick from them as far as finishes and things like that, but we haven't had them that long, so we can't speak to the long-term durability, but so far we're really happy. Oh, the induction range, love it. I was just talking about it the other day because I loved our gas range, and we had a beautiful Thermador gas range, but it was a little bit finicky. If anything happened with it, it was a very expensive repair, and it wasn't very easy to keep clean, both inside the oven and on the stovetop. And this one is a dream. It's like sort of a glass top surface, I guess. I would say that the induction is really similar to gas. It's really reactive, and I find cooking on it to be quite easy. I can hear Austin over here dreaming. And I can clean it, the surface, in no time. It's so easy. And because it doesn't actually get very hot, things don't get baked on, so it's not hard to clean. And then we have the self-cleaning feature on the inside of the oven. So I haven't given that a try yet, but I've used a self-cleaning oven before and it was easy. So I'm anticipating that to be a win as well.
And she's also asking how we're handling the increase in yard work.
Oh yeah.
And this year was pretty easy. There wasn't much rain, so the grass wasn't growing at all almost over all summer.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to mow it much at all. But now, since the rains have come, it's growing on a regular basis again. I'd say we spend maybe 2.5 hours a week doing outside, you know, yard work, trimming, cleaning the pool, taking care of outdoor things. So yeah, it's more than we used to have to, but not as much as we did in North Carolina, which is nice. So it's just the right amount of outdoor work.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, and we forgot to answer the question about the pool that someone asked earlier about whether we're keeping it.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we haven't decided. We actually enjoy it more than we thought we would. I think when we bought the house, we almost saw it as a negative.
It took some time getting used to how to take care of it. We had 2 times where the pool turned green on us, so that was...
That was during a really hot spell. We had we had almost 2 months of straight 100-degree plus weather.
Yeah.
So that made it really hard to maintain the pool. But now that we're having some cooler evenings and it's back down in the 90s, it's been easier. Yeah.
Get the hang of the chemicals.
Yeah. And we've enjoyed using it way more than we thought we would. So
we'll still see.
For the time being, I think we're keeping it, but I don't know if that'll change long term. I guess the downside is, again, when you're traveling and things like that, then that's one thing you have to worry about maintaining when you're away. So we'll see.
Okay, now there's some wardrobe, beauty, and diet type of questions.
Okay.
Maria F. would like to know, what are the places that you buy your clothes? She's 52 and it's been hard to buy classic and good quality pieces besides visiting Talbot's.
Yeah.
Any recommendations?
Yeah, I think she mentioned vintage or secondhand. I wish that I knew of a good place to buy vintage and secondhand clothing. I'm sure there probably are some great ones in Austin. I just haven't discovered them. And I can understand her dilemma. I feel like being in probably somewhere around mid-40s to mid-60s is kind of a hard age range where I feel like they don't address women's fashion super well sometimes. You run the risk of either looking too young or too old. I think Talbot's is a great place. And I found a lot of things on Amazon. And if you go back through my 10-item wardrobe videos, you'll get a good idea of the places where I like to shop and some brands that I really enjoy. But I'm always on the lookout for more. So if you guys have suggestions, leave them down in the description box.
Nan Gardens would like to know if you're letting your hair go back to natural again. Looks good.
So
natural, right?
So I get this comment all the time, and I think it's because depending on the light, there's a bunch of different things. I think the light that I'm filming in, sometimes my hair, the gray doesn't show as much. And then how I wear my hair or cut my hair makes a huge difference too. Probably today you can see it, but it's, kind of frames my face. And I just didn't wind up having as much as I thought I would. When you see the roots growing in and you see like this big gray area coming in, you get the feeling that you have a lot more. Different people in my family, it's a mix of, people that have a lot of gray hair and those that do not. So I didn't know where I would fall. Yeah, I have not dyed my hair since I did those videos where I stopped. I'm really enjoying it, not having to worry about all of the maintenance. I have had some thoughts of maybe adding a few highlights or something, but I have no intention to cover up the gray, and I'm just going to enjoy that coming in at its own pace.
Nadia T had the same kind of question. She was wondering how it's going with transitioning to gray. She thinks you posted about it a few years ago, and she doesn't think it turned that gray.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think I had as much as I thought. I think if you can look closely, you'll see that there's a lot of interspersed gray, but it's really just concentrated around my face. Yeah, we're just going to see what happens.
And Julia Lynn W. is interested in how you stay so fit and trim. You mentioned exercising to a video. Do you count calories, skip snacks and dessert? And just wants to know.
Yeah. So, I could really do a video on this topic, and I've thought about it. I've had a lot of questions about it, but I'm no expert. I think you just kind of get to know your body over time and know kind of what works and what doesn't work. And I guess the only thing that I've done different recently is kind of doing a little bit of more intermittent fasting, changing my schedule so that I'm eating within an 8-hour window and fasting for about 16 hours. And I really didn't do that for weight. I did it more to reduce inflammation. And I've also noticed it helps me sleep much, much better. So that's really my reason for doing that. But I do think it helps with maintaining weight. I think I'm just really careful about portion sizes more than anything else because I don't limit what I eat. I like everything.
For a while, we were not having dessert Monday through Friday, just on the weekends. But sometimes I still sneak in once in a while.
Yeah, I think that was something that we started when the kids were young because we just felt like it wasn't a good idea to get in the habit of eating dessert every night after dinner. And so we limited that to the weekends, and we've stuck with that for the most part. Anything really restrictive usually backfires for me. So I just would rather have what I want and just keep it in smaller portions. And then cutting myself off after dinner really helps too. Just kind of say, okay, I'm done eating for the day, and then it's not a temptation anymore. That just cuts out so much. There have been times where we've snacked at night, and usually that just winds up with extra pounds that you don't really want. And I do think exercise is important, although I'm not sure how much that really plays into maintaining your weight. I think I do that more just for overall fitness and well-being, not really so much to maintain weight. Like I said, I'm not really any expert, and what works for me may not work for you, but if I had to say anything, it would be portion control.
And there are a bunch of background and career type questions. Michelle Royka wanted to know if you wouldn't mind sharing your background. Did you go to college? What was your major? Did you work when you first got married? And how did you come to develop a YouTube channel?
I'll try to answer this as briefly as possible, but I did go to college. My major was in visual and apparel merchandising and marketing, and I went on to initially work in retail. However, because of some summer jobs that I had, started working for doctors, and so in the medical field, and even went back to nursing school for a time. So I worked for doctors when we first got married. Because of having a special needs child, decided at that point that it would be better for me to be a stay-home mom, which I love doing. So I did not complete my nursing degree. And then once we moved here to Texas, I guess was looking for a creative outlet, and I started my YouTube channel. Hannah
KKG would like to know if we are retired.
Yeah, so not yet. So yeah, Patrick is an engineer, and he works full-time from home, and I work on my YouTube channel almost full-time here at home.
And Janice, Terry, Savannah, Chloe, Milo would like to know if you've always been a homemaker, or have you worked outside the home before, which you kind of answered.
Yeah.
And Gertie and Sedge would like to know who some of your favorite YouTubers are.
I've been fortunate to have made some really good friends on YouTube, and they also happen to be my favorite YouTubers. And I think it's because we share this career as YouTubers, so we can really relate to each other. But I think we were initially drawn to each other because we had similar content and therefore just a lot in common. Mary's Nest is one that I love. She is a friend of mine who actually lives rather close to me, and we've been in contact with each other, but recently met in person, and we've just really hit it off. And she is just an amazing teacher. Like, she's just an absolute wealth of knowledge. So if you want to know anything about traditional cooking, she is your go-to channel. And I'll list these channels down in the description box for you guys too. Two of my closest friends on YouTube are Shannon Torrens, and that's the name of her channel, and Noemi, who has Scandish Home. We have been friends on YouTube since we started our channels. They have amazing content. You guys will love them. You've probably heard of them through me already. Jennifer L. Scott too, I met early in my YouTube career. She helped me out a lot. She was a much bigger channel and has always been so gracious with her time, answering my questions, and just being a great friend. Plus, she has phenomenal content. Absolutely love her. Those are probably my top ones, but I do have more, so any that I think of, I will put down in the description box for you.
And the next category is faith questions. Okay. Laura from earlier asked, do you have any favorite Bible verses? So
I do. I actually have quite a few favorite Bible verses, but the two that come to mind are, first of all, Psalm 46:10. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." And that just gives me a lot of comfort to remember that God is in control and things are not up to me. That is just, yeah, that's one of the things I love about our Lord. You know, He's the one in control. The other one is Jeremiah 29:11. This has been a really special one for me. It's sort of a life verse, and my cousin Leslie even gave me a little plaque with this on it that I keep in my office that's a really nice reminder. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And I just find this immensely comforting. Again, it just lets me know that God's in control, so I don't have anything to worry about. And I know a lot of you are probably familiar with those two. More than favorite Bible verses, I think spending time in God's Word each day is just life-changing. And I've talked about it so many times on my channel. Patrick does it with me too. We read through using the Bible recap as a guide. And that has broken down the Bible from beginning to end so that you can read it in a year's time. And she has really great commentary that goes along with it in a podcast. And I couldn't say more good things about that. So if you really want to know God more, then give the Bible recap a try. And I'll put the information for how to get started with that down in the description box too.
And another subscriber, Carrie Gerlitz, asks, during struggles or hard times, what do you do to trust in Jesus and not get discouraged?
I think just as part of our faith journey, we've seen how when we've gone to God during really hard times, how He resolves those things. And sometimes they're in unexpected ways, but He's always been faithful to us. And so it becomes more natural and more easy to trust Him over time. That's basically what it comes down to. We just have complete trust that everything is in God's hands and that His plans for us are good. Also that this earth isn't our home, that our home is in heaven. And so if everything's not resolved here on earth, one day it will be.
Serenity would like to know, how did your journey with the Lord begin?
I actually came to Christ when I was 11. That's when I was baptized, and that was a decision of my own. I did grow up in a Christian family, but I would say my faith didn't become really personal and really strong until we had a special needs child. And then I think at that point in time, I knew that I just couldn't handle that all on my own and that I needed God's help. Because I came to Him in a very broken way, I just really fully understood His grace. And so I think when we go through hard times, those are times when we grow the most in our faith.
And Diminut would like to know, how do you remain calm in times of stress?
Yeah, the same thing, just knowing that God's in control. It's just through a lot of prayer that we learn to rely on Him and less on ourselves.
Head to toe image for you. What change in yourself are you most proud of? Not in the vanity sense of the word.
Like as in the change enriched my life kind of way, right? Okay, so yeah, I would say that's a faith question as well. I wouldn't say proud, but I feel very good about my relationship with the Lord and knowing that in times of trouble and in good times too, we acknowledge that He's the source of all good things and that He's in complete control. And all of the most positive changes I've made in my life were as a result of obedience to God.
And Phyllis Bruff, has moving meant that you needed to find a new church?
That was important to us not to have to find a new church. And that was, I think the first thing Peyton asked us when we said we were moving is, do we have to change churches? Because they have a great special needs ministry at our church. I'm very involved in women's ministry at our church, and we both just really love the staff at our church, and the entire congregation is wonderful. Just feel so connected, and they're our family. So we wanted to make sure that that was something that we could remain a part of. Maybe at some point in time that will change, but currently we are just traveling to go to our church, and we are also able to watch church services online when we aren't able to travel.
Okay, Mia's Gardens would like to know if you have time for reading, and if so, what are your favorites?
Reading has always been one of my favorite pastimes, and I hope to have more time for that again. In this current season of life, the only time I really have for reading, I devote to Bible reading. I do enjoy historical fiction. That's my favorite genre, so if I have a chance, that's probably what I would be reading.
Subscriber Enjoying Life would like to know also what your favorite Bible verse was, and what's the most important advice you would give your adult child?
Let's see, most important advice. I guess for our son Kyle, since he's recently married, given them some sort of marital advice, I guess, and probably the praying together would be the most important thing. We feel like it's just something that draws you together and puts God right at the center of your marriage. So that's something that we've encouraged. That's probably the most important thing. And it's been important for Peyton too, to have connections at church. And also where he works is very Bible-based, Christian-based. And so he gets a lot of time to spend in God's Word and with other Christians. That's been probably the most important thing we could ever impart to them.
Now for some family questions. Linda Budzik wanted to know which of your sons is older, Peyton or Kyle?
So it's probably sort of hard to guess, especially at this stage. Peyton is the oldest, but he's our one with special needs, and Kyle is about 4.5 years younger, probably around middle school age or whatever. I think Kyle probably took on more the big brother role. Like I said, our family dynamic's a little bit different, but it's really worked for us. Kyle's always been a great older brother figure for Peyton.
Southern Smiles 831 wanted to know more about the program that Peyton attends. She wanted you to elaborate on how we found it and if there are other branches in Texas.
So the program is called Brookwood in Georgetown. They have a main campus and 2 satellites currently, and they're also working with others to establish a program like it in other areas of the country. So it originated from Brookwood, which is outside of Houston, Texas. Brookwood and Georgetown has worked closely with them to replicate their program, and they are currently developing a 150-acre property to become residential. And in the town of Georgetown, they have some offices and places where the citizens, which are the people that work there, work, along with a cafe and a couple of retail spaces where they sell the things that they make. They also have an online store, so I'll put all of those things down in the description box for you too. It is a program for adults with special needs, and we absolutely love it. The staff is just absolutely phenomenal. Peyton loves working there. We have met the staff, the other citizens and their families, and it is just kind of one big family. They're the only locations in Texas. They're in the Austin area, but we of course would love for this type of program to be available to anybody anywhere, and so they are working really hard to make that possible in different communities all over the country.
Yeah. Dak Mom 3 wanted to know what kind of dog breed is Austin?
Okay. We don't know with certainty, but a lot of people tell us that he probably is a Kelpie, and there is a lot of evidence to support that.
Right.
But he could be a mixed breed of just about anything, really.
Yeah, right? Some German Shepherd, Lab, Doberman. We've heard people say different things that have seen him.
Yeah, and we've never had him genetically tested because it doesn't really matter to us, but it is fun to speculate.
CHB Mommy 4, she's the mom of an autistic boy. He's 8. And she just wants to know if you have any advice for their family as far as the journey will be.
You know, it's tough when you have a child with special needs because you want the best for all of your children. And sometimes it can be really hard to understand what their needs are going to be. Connecting with other families where you can share resources so that you can fully understand what their needs are and address those is a great place to start. But as far as the journey that you're going to have, I just want to let you know that you're going to have an amazing life. You're going to meet some really special people that work with your son that just have these amazing hearts. We never would have had the opportunity to meet so many amazing people if it weren't for Peyton. And we've also just recognized some neat things about him that you might not see in the typical child. Like, he doesn't have the ability to hold a grudge. He just practices instant forgiveness. And he just has so many unique features that bring so much to our lives. So I think if you can just, recognize those things, the journey will be a lot smoother and you're going to see amazing things for your kid.
Yeah. Marina Living Simple wanted to know, what do you do in your free time? Like your hobbies?
YouTube takes up a lot of my time and is a really great creative outlet for me. But prior to that, I did a lot of things that I would consider creative, I guess. I've always enjoyed spending time in the kitchen. So cooking and baking have been hobbies of mine. Gardening was a big one, and just canning things like jam from our homegrown blackberries. A lot of different arts and crafts type things I used to really enjoy. I actually even thought that I wanted to be an art major when I was in high school because I really enjoyed all forms of art and art history as well. So I think for me, it's just pretty much anything creative is a hobby. And then as a family, we just really like to do a lot of outdoors type things. So hiking and biking and snow skiing and water sports, those have been things that I love to do and love to do as a family.
And Donna Campbell would like to know how you met me. And she said you said something about us getting engaged in Switzerland and what we were doing there, and was it hard for us to move to Texas?
So Donna, she has been a wonderful, faithful subscriber and has given me so much encouragement, and I would love to answer this question. Patrick and I actually met when we were 12. His family had moved to the state that we grew up in just about a year before my family moved there, and then we met in our church, and this was on the East Coast, and we pretty much grew up together from there. We had a circle of friends in our church, and we even went like on a movie date a couple times when we were around 13. And then we really started dating our senior year of high school. And then we went to separate colleges, but we still got married after college. While we were in college, we were engaged, and that was on a trip. He was there during the vacations in Switzerland because that's where his family's from. So I went there for a couple weeks to spend time with his family, and we became engaged in Switzerland. So yeah, and we were married after college.
And in addition to Donna, there's Sharon Huneke, Sharon Gardner, and Liesel that also wanted to know how we met, so I think you answered that. And in addition, Sharon Huneke asks what I do for a living. Basically, I'm an engineer for a Silicon Valley company. That lets me work from home easily, and yeah.
Yeah, well, this one's funny.
Anya?
Yeah, Anya.
Anya wanted to know if I was born in Switzerland and do I have an accent. I wasn't born in Switzerland. My parents came over to the States for about 20 years, but I did originally speak Swiss German with them until I was 2 or 3. So what do you think? Do I have an accent?
I would say definitely no accent.
Okay. 615V, what's some of your favorite date night ideas that you and your hubby like to do?
So actually we've been trying to keep up with that. It was a little bit busy there for a while, but we do think it's really important to have date nights, and we're trying to do that more and more lately. And we just like to do simple things. So every once in a while we'll go out to dinner, but more often than not we'll get some dessert, or we even went to a tea place recently and just grabbed some tea. And then there are several places all around Austin where you can find live music. So we like to go someplace like that and just enjoy some live music, hang out for a little while, just spend time with each other, and try not to talk about the kids too much, right? Mostly that.
AM wanted to know if we have any grandchildren, and do we ever visit Switzerland?
We don't have grandchildren yet. We just have one son that was married back in November, and we do visit Switzerland. Prior to COVID, we tried to go almost every other year or every 2 years, and that has slowed down a little bit, but we're hoping to step that back up again. And she asked if we ever tape our trips. Well, we haven't yet, but we probably will. Yeah.
And Recurrent asks, have you done any genealogical research, and if so, what countries are your ancestors from?
Patrick is almost entirely Swiss. I don't think we know of anybody that isn't Swiss. And for me, my dad is very much into tracing our background. So what we know is that his side of the family is predominantly Scottish, and my mom's is English, and we thought German, but recently discovered that she's predominantly Swiss. So that was pretty cool to find out.
Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Yep. K046 asks, have you vacationed in your RV yet this year?
Yeah, so as of 2022, we spent a lot of time in our RV.
First 3 months.
Yeah, while we were renovating our house, but we haven't taken a vacation yet, just because everything that's been going on with the renovations. But we definitely have plans to, and I'm sure I'll be filming some of that and letting you guys know when we do. Just want to thank you guys so much for spending your time with us here today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, I want to invite you to do that. We would love to have you join us here at Faith and Flower. We have the best subscribers on YouTube, and you can meet them down in the comment section. And as you can see, they have great questions. So thank you so much for submitting those, for supporting us to 100,000 subscribers. And we will see you in the next video. So until then, have a wonderful week.